Have you ever felt that the more things you accumulate, the less happy you become? What if true freedom lies in the opposite of everything modern society pushes us to desire? Carl Jung, one of the greatest psychologists of all time, discovered a secret that can completely transform your existence. Simplicity is the path to psychological wholeness. While the world screams at you to consume more, Jung whispers an uncomfortable truth. Your soul is suffocating under the weight of everything you deem necessary. What would happen if you abandoned most of what you own today? Modern science finally proves what Jung intuited decades ago. Living simply isn't just a lifestyle. It's the cure for the existential emptiness consuming our society. In the next few minutes, you'll discover why living simply is the most powerful decision you can make for yourself. In our modern world, we're constantly told that success means accumulating more possessions, more wealth, more status symbols. The advertisements that surround us every day whisper a seductive promise. Happiness is just one more purchase away. Yet despite living in the most materially abundant time in human history, rates of depression, anxiety, and feelings of emptiness continue to rise. This striking contradiction forms what we might call the paradox of abundance. Carl Jung observed this phenomenon decades before it reached today's extreme levels. He noticed that as his patients gained material wealth, many simultaneously experienced a growing inner poverty. The Swiss psychologist recognized that the human psyche craves meaning and depth, not just surface-level pleasures and possessions. The least of things with a meaning is worth more in life than the greatest of things without it, Jung wrote, highlighting how our obsession with accumulation often leaves us spiritually malnourished. Think about the last time you felt truly fulfilled. Was it when you bought a new gadget? Or was it during a moment of genuine connection with another person? Or perhaps while engaged in meaningful work or experiencing nature's beauty? The things that bring lasting satisfaction rarely have price tags. The paradox deepens when we consider what happens to our attention when surrounded by excess. Our mental and emotional resources are finite. Every object we own demands something from us: space in our homes, time for maintenance, mental energy to keep track of it, and often anxiety about protecting it. The more possessions we accumulate, the more thinly stretched our attention becomes, leaving less for the experiences that truly nourish us. Jung understood that this outward focus creates what he termed psychic inflation, a condition where the ego becomes bloated with external validations, while the inner self remains undernourished. We become identified with our possessions rather than our essence. People will do anything, no matter how absurd, in order to avoid facing their own souls, Jung noted. Accumulating possessions often serves as the perfect distraction from the inner work that leads to genuine fulfillment. Technology has intensified this paradox. Our smartphones offer unprecedented access to information and connection. Yet many people report feeling more isolated than ever. Social media platforms show us carefully curated images of others' lives, triggering comparison and dissatisfaction with our own. The digital world promises abundance, but often delivers overwhelm. Our physical environments reflect this problem too. Many homes have become storage facilities rather than sanctuaries. Closets overflow with unworn clothes, drawers fill with unused gadgets, and garages become so packed with belongings that cars no longer fit inside them. These cluttered spaces don't just take up physical room, they occupy mental space as well, creating a background noise of subtle stress that never fully quiets. Even our time, perhaps our most precious resource, falls victim to the paradox of abundance. We fill our calendars to the brim, saying yes to every opportunity, yet end up too exhausted to fully engage with any of them. We consume endless content, yet retain little. We maintain hundreds of shallow connections while yearning for a few deep ones. The environmental costs of this paradigm add another layer of irony. In our quest for more, we deplete the natural world that sustains us. Forests fall, oceans fill with plastic, and the climate destabilizes, all to produce items that often fail to deliver the satisfaction they promised. Jung recognized that this outward-focused approach to happiness represents a fundamental misunderstanding of human psychology. The path to wholeness, what Jung called individuation, requires turning inward rather than constantly reaching outward. It demands that we face our shadows and integrate the different aspects of ourselves, instead of seeking external solutions to internal needs. When we begin to understand this paradox, we take the first step toward liberation. We can start questioning the underlying assumptions that drive our consumption habits. We might ask, do I really need this? Will it add meaningful value to my life? Or am I trying to fill an inner void with an external solution? These questions lead us toward what Jung might call a more conscious relationship with the material world. One where we choose what serves our deeper needs rather than being driven by unconscious impulses and social conditioning. The paradox of abundance ultimately teaches us that having more often gives us less of what truly matters: presence, meaning, connection, and inner peace. By recognizing this truth, we open the door to a different way of living, one that aligns more closely with our authentic needs and values. By the way, if you're curious to go even deeper and integrate your shadows and light, check out the Sim Method ebook. It's a concise guide that can help you unlock your inner power in just 5 minutes a day. The link is in the first pinned comment below. When we look at Carl Jung's life and work, we find a profound appreciation for simplicity that goes far beyond mere lifestyle choices. For Jung, simplicity wasn't just about owning fewer things. It represented an essential psychological principle that could lead to greater wholeness and authenticity. Yet this aspect of his wisdom has been largely forgotten in our complex, achievement-oriented culture. Jung's own life embodied this principle. After achieving international fame and professional success, he built himself a simple stone house at Bollingen on Lake Zurich. There, without electricity or running water, he found the space to connect with the deeper currents of his psyche. He cooked meals over a fire, drew water from a well, and wrote by candlelight. This wasn't a rejection of modernity, but a conscious choice to create an environment where his inner life could flourish. The privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, Jung wrote. He discovered that simplicity created the conditions for this becoming. When we strip away the excess, both material possessions and unnecessary social obligations, we can hear the quieter voices within us that speak to our true nature and calling. The noise of constant consumption drowns out these essential inner messages. Jung recognized that the human psyche naturally seeks balance and wholeness. He called this the self-regulating psyche, our innate tendency to heal psychological splits and move toward integration. Yet our complex modern lives often work against this natural healing process. We fragment our attention across countless stimuli, roles and possessions, creating inner division rather than wholeness. The Swiss psychologist observed that many of his patients suffered not from clearly defined psychological disorders, but from a sense of meaninglessness and disconnection, what he termed the general neurosis of our time. He saw that the rush toward material progress often came at the cost of spiritual and psychological well-being. We have forgotten the age-old fact that God speaks chiefly through dreams and visions, Jung noted, pointing to how our busy, outward-focused lives leave little room for the deeper wisdom that emerges in stillness. Jung's concept of the collective unconscious also relates to simplicity. He believed that beneath our personal experiences lies a shared layer of psychic material containing universal patterns and symbols, what he called archetypes. Access to this deeper wisdom often requires quiet contemplation and inner listening, practices that thrive in simple settings but struggle amid constant distraction. The practice of active imagination, one of Jung's most important psychological techniques, demonstrates this principle. Through this method, a person engages with images and symbols arising from the unconscious in a state of open awareness. This powerful tool for psychological integration requires uncluttered mental space, precisely what simplicity provides. Jung witnessed how his patients who embraced simpler living often experienced significant psychological breakthroughs. Their dreams became more vivid and meaningful, their relationships deeper, and their sense of purpose clearer. By reducing external complications, they created room for inner complexity to unfold naturally and constructively. The concept of the shadow, those parts of ourselves we repress or deny, also connects to Jung's understanding of simplicity. He observed that many people fill their lives with possessions and activities, partly to avoid confronting their shadow aspects. A simpler life offers fewer places to hide from ourselves, creating opportunities for the integration that leads to genuine wholeness. Your vision will become clear only when you can look into your own heart, Jung wrote. Who looks outside dreams, who looks inside awakes. Simplicity creates the conditions for this inward gaze, removing the distractions that keep us perpetually looking outward and dreaming of fulfillment through acquisition. Jung also recognized the connection between simplicity and authenticity. The more we define ourselves through external markers, job titles, possessions, social status, the further we drift from our true nature. The persona, our social mask, grows stronger while our authentic self weakens. Simplicity helps reverse this process by stripping away the excess that obscures our essence. This forgotten wisdom has profound implications for our relationship with technology. Jung couldn't have anticipated today's digital landscape, but his principles suggest the value of creating boundaries around our use of devices. When we constantly outsource our thinking, memory, and even emotional processing to digital tools, we may lose touch with essential aspects of our humanity. The path Jung illuminated wasn't about rejection of the modern world, but about conscious relationship with it. He didn't advocate retreating to caves, but rather creating space within our lives for deeper awareness and meaning. This middle way, embracing the benefits of modernity while maintaining connection to timeless human needs, represents the heart of Jung's forgotten wisdom about simplicity. As we move to understand how this principle manifests in practical terms, we begin to see that simplicity isn't deprivation, but liberation, a clearing away of what doesn't truly serve us to make room for what does. The human mind wasn't designed for the constant bombardment of information, choices, and stimuli that characterize modern life. Our brains evolved in environments where scarcity, not abundance, was the norm, where attention could flow naturally between a limited number of important concerns. Today, we're drowning in a sea of information, advertisements, notifications, and options. This mental overload doesn't just make us stressed, it fundamentally alters our relationship with ourselves and the world. Jung understood that mental clutter mirrors physical clutter. He observed that many of his patients who struggled with anxiety and indecision lived in environments as chaotic as their thoughts. Their homes were filled with objects they didn't need, their schedules packed with commitments that drained rather than nourished them. Jung recognized that outer simplicity creates the conditions for inner clarity, what we might call a detoxification of the mind. This mental detox begins when we reduce the number of decisions we face each day. Research has revealed that decision-making depletes our mental energy. Each choice, no matter how small, takes a toll on our psychological resources. When we simplify our lives, owning fewer clothes, establishing routines, limiting options, we free ourselves from countless minor decisions. This liberation allows our minds to focus on what truly matters, Our attention represents perhaps our most valuable resource. When we scatter it across countless possessions, activities, and digital distractions, we dilute its power. Jung noted that profound psychological insights often emerge when we direct sustained attention toward important questions or challenges. Simplicity creates the mental space for this deep attention, allowing us to think more clearly and see connections that might otherwise remain hidden. The constant pursuit of new possessions creates a particular form of mental pollution: desire. Each advertisement we see, each social media post displaying someone else's enviable purchase, plants seeds of wanting in our minds. These desires rarely exist naturally. They're manufactured by marketing experts who understand how to trigger our insecurities and aspirations. By embracing simplicity, we begin to distinguish between authentic needs and manufactured wants, gradually freeing ourselves from the exhausting cycle of desire and temporary satisfaction. Jung witnessed how many people use material abundance to avoid confronting difficult emotions. Shopping becomes therapy, new possessions serve as momentary mood lifters, and homes transform into fortresses against uncomfortable feelings. Yet these strategies never address the root causes of emotional distress. By simplifying our lives, we create space to face our feelings directly, developing emotional resilience rather than dependency on external comforts. Our relationship with time undergoes a profound shift when we embrace simplicity. The constant rush from one activity to another, what some call time poverty, leaves us perpetually stressed and unable to fully engage with our experiences. Jung valued periods of solitude and reflection, understanding that psychological growth requires unhurried contemplation. A simpler schedule, with breathing room between commitments, restores our sense of time abundance and allows for the deep processing that leads to wisdom. Digital simplicity represents an especially important form of mental detoxification today. The average person checks their phone over 150 times daily, each glance fragmenting attention and triggering a cascade of thoughts. Jung couldn't have anticipated smartphones, but he understood the psychological importance of boundaries. Creating digital-free zones and times in our lives, during meals, before bed, on weekends, allows our minds to settle into natural rhythms rather than responding to constant external triggers. The concept of cognitive bandwidth helps explain why mental simplicity matters so much. Our working memory and processing capacity are finite resources. When we overload them with trivial concerns and constant inputs, we have less bandwidth available for creative thinking, emotional processing, and meaningful connections. Simplifying our mental landscape increases our available bandwidth, allowing us to think more deeply and respond more wisely to life's challenges. Jung observed that dreams often become more vivid and meaningful when people reduce external stimulation. The unconscious mind speaks more clearly when not competing with endless distractions. Many who embrace simplicity report enhanced creativity, intuition, and problem-solving abilities. All functions that emerge from the deeper layers of consciousness that Jung explored throughout his work. The relationship between mental and physical well-being becomes clearer through the lens of simplicity. Chronic stress from information overload and constant stimulation triggers physiological responses that compromise immune function and cardiovascular health. By simplifying our mental landscape, we reduce this stress response, potentially improving physical health alongside psychological well-being. Memory, our ability to retain and access important information, also benefits from mental simplicity. When we constantly consume new content without allowing time for processing and integration, little moves from short-term to long-term memory. Jung valued the integration of experience into a coherent personal narrative. Simplicity creates space for this integration, helping us build a more stable sense of identity amid constant change. As we detoxify our minds through simplicity, we often discover that certain thoughts and concerns fall away naturally. What once seemed like essential worries reveal themselves as conditioned responses or social expectations that don't align with our true values. This clearing away creates room for more authentic concerns to emerge, the questions and aspirations that reflect our deepest nature rather than external pressures. The mental liberation that comes through simplicity isn't about emptying the mind, but about filling it more intentionally, with ideas that inspire us, relationships that support us, and experiences that enrich us. As Jung might have put it, we create space for the psyche to unfold according to its own natural wisdom, rather than according to the demands of a consumption-driven culture. One of Jung's most profound insights was his understanding of the persona, the social mask we wear to meet the expectations of others and function in society. While the persona serves important purposes, Jung warned that identifying too strongly with this mask leads to a disconnection from our authentic nature. In today's world, our possessions have become powerful extensions of our personas, creating what we might call the persona trap, a state where external symbols of identity suffocate the expression of our true selves. The persona trap begins innocently enough. We acquire certain items because they reflect how we want others to see us. The luxury watch that signals success, the fashionable clothes that demonstrate taste, the latest technology that shows we're forward-thinking. There's nothing inherently wrong with enjoying beautiful or useful objects. The problem arises when we begin to believe these possessions define who we are, rather than simply reflecting aspects of our preferences. Jung observed that many people become so identified with their social roles and external markers of status that they lose touch with their deeper nature. The persona, he wrote, is a complicated system of relations between individual consciousness and society, fittingly enough a kind of mask, designed on the one hand to make a definite impression upon others, and on the other to conceal the true nature of the individual. Our possessions often function as physical components of this mask. The psychological cost of the persona trap reveals itself in several ways. First comes the constant anxiety about maintaining appearances. When our sense of worth depends on external validation, we must continually ensure our possessions and lifestyle meet social standards. This creates a background stress that never fully subsides. Even when alone, we worry about how others might judge our homes, clothes, or achievements if they could see them. Another cost is the energy diverted from authentic self-expression. Jung believed that each person has a unique individual path, what he called the process of individuation. This path requires listening to our own inner guidance rather than conforming to external expectations. When we invest our limited resources, time, money, attention, in maintaining a socially acceptable persona, we have less available for discovering and expressing our unique gifts and perspectives. The persona trap also creates a painful split between our public and private selves. Jung noted that this division often leads to psychological distress. We present one face to the world while hiding aspects we fear others might reject. Our homes become stages carefully designed to impress visitors rather than spaces that authentically reflect our values and support our well-being. This disconnect between appearance and reality creates an undercurrent of falseness in our lives. Social media has intensified the persona trap dramatically. Platforms like Instagram and Facebook allow us to curate highly selective representations of our lives, creating digital personas that often bear little resemblance to our day-to-day reality. We showcase new purchases and picture-perfect moments while hiding struggles and ordinary experiences. This curation creates pressure to acquire more post-worthy possessions and experiences, deepening our entanglement in the persona trap. Jung understood that material simplicity could help liberate us from over-identification with the persona. When we own fewer status symbols and spend less energy managing appearances, we create space to discover who we are beneath social expectations. The first half of life is devoted to forming a healthy ego, Jung noted. The second half is going inward and letting go of it. Simplicity facilitates this letting go, this movement from outer achievement to inner authenticity. The relationship between possessions and identity becomes especially clear during major life transitions. People who lose their wealth, professional status, or prized possessions often experience not just practical challenges, but identity crises. If I'm not my job title, luxury car, or impressive address, then who am I? This painful question emerges when external markers of identity are stripped away, revealing how dependent many become on possessions for their sense of self. Jung recognized that genuine security comes not from accumulating external validations, but from connecting with deeper aspects of the psyche. He described the self, with a capital S, as the organizing center of the total personality, including both conscious and unconscious elements. This self transcends the ego and its attachments to status and possessions. By simplifying our external lives, we create conditions for connecting with this more enduring aspect of our nature. The liberation from the persona trap doesn't happen all at once. It begins with small experiments in authenticity, perhaps dressing for comfort rather than impression, choosing a home based on how it feels to live there rather than how it looks to others, or pursuing interests that genuinely engage us rather than those that confer status. Each step away from persona-driven choices moves us toward greater psychological freedom. What emerges as we loosen the grip of the persona trap is a more fluid, authentic way of being. We become less defensive about our image and more open to genuine connection. Conversations shift from showcasing accomplishments to sharing true thoughts and feelings. Relationships deepen as we present our real selves rather than carefully crafted impressions. The energy previously devoted to maintaining appearances becomes available for creativity, service, and presence. Jung believed that midlife often brings a natural opportunity to reassess our relationship with the persona. As we recognize that certain external achievements don't bring the fulfillment we expected, we may naturally turn inward, questioning values absorbed from family and culture. Simplifying our material lives can support this important psychological transition, creating space for a more authentic second half of life. The journey beyond the persona trap toward greater authenticity represents one of the most liberating aspects of embracing simplicity. As we let go of possessions that serve primarily to impress others, we discover the lightness and freedom that come from being who we truly are, rather than who we think others expect us to be. When people first encounter the idea of simplifying their lives, many imagine austere minimalism. Bare white walls, empty rooms, and lives stripped of pleasure. This misunderstanding creates resistance and prevents many from experiencing the benefits of a simpler life. Jung, however, never advocated for extreme deprivation. Instead, his life and work point toward what we might call the middle path, a balanced approach to simplicity that enhances rather than diminishes our experience of living. Jung himself demonstrated this balance. His home at Bollingen was simple by modern standards, yet filled with meaningful objects, books, and art that supported his inner work. He enjoyed good food and wine, maintained rich friendships, and traveled widely. What made his lifestyle simple wasn't deprivation, but discernment, choosing quality over quantity, depth over breadth, and meaning over accumulation. This nuanced approach offers wisdom for anyone seeking a more balanced relationship with possessions and experiences. The concept of enough stands at the heart of this middle path. Jung recognized that both excess and insufficiency create psychological distress. Having too much fragments attention and burdens the spirit, while having too little triggers scarcity thinking and anxiety. The sweet spot lies in discovering what constitutes enough in each area of life. Enough possessions to meet our needs, enough activities to engage our talents, enough rest to restore our energy. This point of enough varies from person to person, making simplicity a highly individual practice rather than a rigid standard. Jung's understanding of psychological types helps explain why one-size-fits-all approaches to simplicity often fail. He observed that people naturally differ in their orientation to the world, extroversion versus introversion, and in how they process information and make decisions. These differences influence what kind of environment each person needs to thrive. An extrovert might require more social engagement and stimulation than an introvert, while a sensation type might benefit from more sensory richness than an intuitive type. The middle path respects these differences, encouraging each person to simplify in ways that support their unique psychological makeup. The concept of intentional abundance offers another aspect of the middle path. Rather than eliminating pleasure, this approach involves creating richness in carefully chosen areas while simplifying others. A person might maintain a minimal wardrobe but cultivate an abundant garden, own few possessions but enjoy a rich social life, or live in a small home filled with books and art that nourish the mind and spirit. This selective abundance allows for depth and joy without the overwhelm that comes from trying to have everything. Jung valued the natural world as a source of psychological healing and renewal. The middle path embraces this connection, recognizing that time in nature offers a form of abundance that doesn't deplete resources or burden the psyche. A walk through a forest, an afternoon by the ocean, or time spent tending a garden provides rich sensory experiences without the downsides of material consumption. This natural abundance represents a central aspect of balanced simplicity. The relationship between simplicity and pleasure deserves special attention. Many assume that owning less means enjoying less, but psychological research suggests the opposite often proves true. When we own fewer things, we tend to choose them more carefully and appreciate them more fully. The middle path doesn't eliminate pleasure, but intensifies it through conscious choice and full presence. A simple meal savored mindfully offers more satisfaction than an elaborate feast consumed in a state of distraction. Time represents another domain where the middle path offers wisdom. Many people today suffer from what sociologists call time poverty, having too many commitments and too little unstructured time. Yet complete freedom from commitments can lead to purposelessness. The middle path seeks the balance point, enough structure to provide meaning and direction, enough openness to allow for rest, spontaneity, and the creative emergence Jung valued. This might mean maintaining important professional and family commitments, while eliminating those that drain energy without providing proportional value. Jung understood that humans naturally seek beauty and sensory pleasure. The middle path honors these needs rather than dismissing them as superficial. Instead of eliminating aesthetics, balanced simplicity involves finding beauty in natural materials, thoughtful design, and objects chosen for quality rather than quantity. A single well-crafted item can provide more aesthetic satisfaction than dozens of poorly made alternatives, creating an environment that feels abundant rather than austere. The middle path also applies to our relationship with technology. Jung couldn't have anticipated today's digital landscape, but his principles suggest neither total rejection nor uncritical embrace serves us well. Balanced simplicity might involve using technology intentionally for purposes that align with our values, while creating boundaries that protect our attention and inner life. This could mean enjoying the connection social media provides without allowing it to dominate our awareness, or appreciating the convenience of smart devices without becoming dependent on constant stimulation. Financial simplicity represents another aspect of the middle path. Jung observed that both poverty and wealth can create psychological distortions. The middle way involves finding financial sufficiency, having enough to meet needs and support meaningful pursuits without the burden of excess. This might mean earning less to work fewer hours, choosing a modest home that doesn't require a stressful mortgage, or saving consistently to create freedom from financial anxiety. The goal isn't deprivation, but liberation from both financial stress and the psychological complications of excess wealth. Relationships also benefit from the middle path approach. Many people today suffer from social overextension, maintaining too many shallow connections that collectively drain more energy than they provide. Jung valued depth in relationships, noting that meaningful connection requires time and attention. The middle path might involve nurturing fewer, deeper friendships while gracefully limiting obligations that create social exhaustion. This selective approach enhances rather than diminishes our experience of connection. The concept of conscious consumption embodies the middle path philosophy. Rather than swinging between unrestricted buying and rigid abstinence, this approach involves bringing awareness to each purchase decision. Before acquiring something new, we might ask, does this align with my values? Will it bring lasting satisfaction or merely momentary pleasure? Do I have space for this in my home and life? This thoughtful consideration leads naturally to owning less without creating a sense of deprivation. Jung recognized that different life stages might require different approaches to simplicity. Young adults establishing careers and families naturally acquire more, while those in later life often feel drawn to streamline and focus on what matters most. The middle path honors these natural rhythms rather than imposing a single standard across the lifespan. What constitutes balanced simplicity at 25 may differ from what serves us at 50 or 75. The psychological freedom that emerges from walking this middle path cannot be overstated. When we find our personal balance point between too much and too little, we experience a lightening of both practical and psychological burdens. We gain space to breathe, think, create, and connect. We develop resilience against marketing messages and social pressures. Perhaps most importantly, we discover that well-being comes not from reaching some idealized state of minimalism, but from aligning our outer circumstances with our inner needs and values.